Marlon Humphrey had harsh words for the Baltimore Ravens and their defense, but Kyle Hamilton pushed back on them. We talk about what he had to say. So much more coming up on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Ostreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. And thank you to all the everydayers, the first-time listeners, and for somewhere in the middle, thank you as well. We're a 5-day-a-week plus more daily Ravens show. And we have a jam-packed episode here on this bonus edition on Saturday before we get into our Week 2 game against the Cleveland Browns that the Ravens have on Sunday. We'll do a little preview for that one. But in the first part of the show, Kyle Hamilton, he pushed back on the words of Marlon Humphrey, who had some very harsh words for the Baltimore Ravens defense. We'll talk about why both guys might be right in this situation. Then in the second part of the show, a former Ravens defensive lineman absolutely ripped the Browns, and he had some very interesting remarks on the fact that the Ravens are celebrating their 30th season when the Browns come to town on Sunday. And then finally, we will get into that Ravens and Browns preview in the final part of the show. I want to remind everybody today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward Mazda Move and Be Moved. Let's dive into it right here, right now. Kyle Hamilton, he pushed back on Marlon Humphrey's harsh comments. And actually, I didn't even know, and I guess it was just an oversight by me and what Marlon Humphrey had to say to the media. He ended up talking about how John Harbaugh questioned the team's maturity. And so that was kind of where the brunt of Humphrey's comments came, was just in terms of their maturity level. And Humphrey himself obviously talked about that maturity level. But the thing about John Harbaugh, what he had to say, Humphrey said, quote, "I think it goes to what Harbs," meaning John Harbaugh, addressed in the team meeting. He said, "We're just not mature enough as a team yet." Humphrey said, quote, "It's very clear we've got great players on both sides of the ball, but defensively we have to work on our maturity too. Doesn't matter what our offense is doing. We have to go up there and win the game. And right now our maturity level, sadly, when we get in those situations, is just not enough." And he talked a lot about how guys are, trying to play hero, try to make plays. And he says, "Oh, everyone says, I want to make a play. I want to make a play." And, they also have to work on that maturity in practice, Marlon Humphrey said. And he said he's trying to build on that maturity come Sunday. And Kyle Hamilton was asked about those comments the day after. He was asked if that critique of the defense and that immaturity and the whole thing that Marlon said was fair. And he pushed back on it. He said, "No, I don't think so." He has his own perspective, meaning Marlon. Hamilton said, though, quote, "But I think it was more so lackadaisical than immature. I think it was just a little stuff like the way we're taking the field. We might have wanted the offense to drain the clock out with 8 minutes left, but that's not how the game flowed. We still had an opportunity to go out there and give them the ball back. I've said this the whole week. The offense should not score 40 points and be trying to fight for the game at the end of the game. It's the National Football League. If your offense puts up 40 points, you should be winning the game handedly." So props to them. They did a great job, and I think we did for the majority of the game. We just have to close it out, and that's where I think we were a little lackadaisical in that. I know that I think the word maturity or being mature as a team, I think that's a strong statement. And, I don't think, look, I want to make this clear off the bat. I don't think that there's this like locker room split or something like, oh, Hamilton and Humphrey are fighting. No, I do not think that's the case. I'd be very shocked if that was the case. I think truly it's just different perspectives on what happened, like Kyle Hamilton said. And look, honestly, I think both guys can be right. And the fact that with what Marlon said, I think that sometimes guys do try to play a bit of hero ball. And I think that aspect of what Marlon had to say is correct. He also made it clear that there is not going to be a repeat of last season, right? He said that what we're going to do it right. And he said, quote, "The guys that do it right are going to play. It's really just that simple." He said, quote, "I think we're just too talented of a team to continue to have those collapses, the kind that we've had." And that was kind of the message in, the way that John Harbaugh has talked. Marlon mentioned Zach Orr as well, that they're not going to be repeat offenders here. And, they're not going to, I guess, defend guys for doing something wrong, which, I don't know how much they did that last season, but clearly they made a change after that defense only meeting after the second Cincinnati game, which they somehow miraculously won both of those games, even though they probably didn't deserve to. But Hamilton, I think, is right in his own way, where it might not have been immaturity. It might have been lackadaisical. It might have been both, if we're being honest. I mean, I think in ways you have to kind of look at the way that these things have gone for the Ravens over the course of the last year. And you can go back however far you want to go back to. It's a problem. It's an issue. But I think both what Humphrey and Hamilton say, both of them cause problems. Like, I don't think it's okay that, if the defense had the mindset of, all right, offense, just drain the clock. That's not the mindset you need to be going in the game with. That's what Hamilton was saying. Humphrey's saying that guys want to make plays and play hero ball. Can't have that mindset either. You just got to play your game for a full 60 minutes. And obviously we're going to see on Sunday, tomorrow, what's going to happen. Are they going to be able to do it? Because we saw a couple of different situations, particularly with Cleveland, where, first of all, the thing not involving Cleveland last year was the fact that the Ravens were heavily favored in that game against Las Vegas, and they just absolutely ruined it for themselves and started the 0-2. You can't do that again. And then against Cleveland, who they were favored against, this was on the road. This game obviously is at home, but they let Jameis Winston and company beat them in a game where they just beat themselves over and over and over again. So, look, I appreciate the multiple different perspectives. And I said it, we talked about Marlon's comments a couple days ago, just in general. And I always appreciate when Marlon has stuff to say like this, or like what he had to say, because I know that he can be kind of the referred to as the silly guy, or, the class clown of the Ravens, if you will. But he especially this offseason has stepped up to the plate, and it's gone beyond just this offseason and in this week one after press conference or media availability. But Marlon has been very honest and truthful in that. And I think Kyle Hamilton's been the same way. I honestly think a lot of the guys are. I think the person or the member of the organization a lot of people have issues with right now, and it's not just involving the coaching, but it's how he's handled his media. It's John Harbaugh. Right? Zach Orr took accountability, right? We heard Todd Monken take accountability. John Harbaugh kind of got there in ways eventually, but, his answers have kind of been like, oh, well, we've been up a lot, so of course you're going to blow more leads when you're up a lot. Like, that's not what fans want to hear, first of all. It's not even the point of the questions. If you blow leads, you blow leads. I don't care what it is. That, to me, I think is the person that a lot of people have issue with right now. And obviously for coaching reasons and blown lead reasons, it's one thing, but it's also, I think, how Harbaugh's handled it. And that even goes back to kind of getting very defensive about the Super Bowl or bust expectations on this team, which are very clearly there. And John Harbaugh is just like, no, I don't believe in that. Like, I think that's not word for word, but essentially saying that's ridiculous, to be paraphrasing there. But, at the end of the day, that's been the big thing. Even the way he handled his Monday post press conference, or his Monday post game press conference availability the day after, where he was kind of like throwing Kyle Hamilton under the bus a little bit for that safety and being very it was a very aggressive answer for what Hamilton did. It wasn't necessarily like the smartest play I've ever seen, but Harbaugh essentially calling it I don't even remember what he said. He said it was one of the dumbest things he's ever seen, or I don't think it was that. It was his last answer. I'm going to pull it up quickly. He said it was one of the most foolish things I've ever seen. So along the same vein, but even still, he kind of wasn't taking the level of accountability that I personally would have liked there. And I mentioned this on that show the next day, or maybe the day after. Didn't shock me, because John Harbaugh has taken that approach before. I'm not saying John Harbaugh has never taken accountability before. That'd just be untruthful. But again, in this situation, especially when this is a make or break season, in my opinion, like it absolutely is. It's just a fact. It doesn't matter how much you like John Harbaugh or dislike John Harbaugh. This is a make or break season for the Ravens, with the roster, with the expectations, and honestly with the history. The Ravens have had 3 elite chances to win a Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh, that pairing, and they have come up short, not only short in a championship, but short in an appearance in the Super Bowl. So These guys have to get right. And again, it's not all on coaching. It's not all on execution. I've been very consistent. If you've been listening to me for years on this show, and I've said it, it's a holistic effort. Everybody takes a piece of that blame pie. How big of a piece does everybody take? Obviously a different conversation, but everybody plays a part. Everybody. So they have to get back on track in week 2. I think they can do it. Obviously, you got to play the game, though. Can't just be on paper, as we saw in week number 1, and as we've seen over the course of a lot of teams' franchise history. It's not just the Ravens. Coming up, though, in the second part of the show, we're diving into a former Ravens defensive lineman ripping the Browns. And again, very interesting remarks from him on the Ravens hosting their 30th season celebration on the day the Browns come to town. So stay tuned. A lot coming up on the show. This episode is brought to you by DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For the Ravens, I think Zay Flowers, to me, delivered in a big way in that Bills game. Obviously, he set a career high in receiving yards, was all over the field, and was clearly Lamar Jackson's favorite target. When the pressure was on in those big moments, Zay Flowers, he truly came through. There was no hesitation, no delay. If you've been watching Zay Flowers week after week, this performance was not a fluke. Zay Flowers has been making a name for himself, and honestly, over the course of his career, he has been on a streak. And just like Zay Flowers delivered for the Ravens, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/18. And the show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel's making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet, player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. And for the Ravens and Browns, their week 2 matchup. Right now, the Ravens favored at home by 11.5. So if you feel like the Browns will pull off the upset in Baltimore as the road underdog, you can pick that side. I personally like the Ravens a lot. I think they're going to bounce back after that week 1 devastating loss. So I'm taking the Ravens on this one for sure. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Moving along on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here with you, talking to you on this Saturday. Hopefully everybody's enjoying the start to their weekend. Obviously, big game ahead for the Ravens in week number 2 against the Browns. Appreciate everybody again for being here. We're a 5-day-a-week plus more daily Ravens podcast. So Monday through Friday is the regular show, 6 a.m. Eastern time. We bring you that content as well as bonus episodes like this on the weekends when the headlines permit. We also have Locked On Ravens watch alongs. We'll be doing that again tomorrow, 1 p.m. Be there or be square, as we're going to react to every single play in that game. And then after that, we'll have the instant reaction show. We will have the Locked On Ravens squad show after that. So a ton of game day content, a ton of other content. And of course, we also have everything you need to know about this team on a daily basis. So be sure to tell a friend, tell a family member as well. We have in season, out of season. We do not stop on Locked On Ravens. So be sure to check out everything we have Ravens-wise on Locked On Ravens. But let's talk about a former Ravens defensive lineman ripping the Browns and honestly is kind of making fun of them. It was crazy, in my opinion, kind of how this develops here. Chris Canty is the former Ravens defensive lineman. And obviously one of the big storylines, and there are a couple of them that have made headlines and continue to make headlines as Browns players keep talking. But that aside, over on ESPN Milwaukee on the unsportsmanlike radio here, you have Chris Canty saying that in terms of the question, just first of all, for context, I want to get this out first. The question was, are the Ravens crossing the line by celebrating their 30th season against the Browns? A lot of Browns fans would say yes. A lot of Ravens fans would say no. Well, Chris Canty, he said, quote, "I love it. Celebrate, tap dance on the entire city of Cleveland. We took your team and did it better." I just got to say, wow. Just wow, wow, wow. And they threw up stats after he said that. The Ravens since 1996 268 wins, 200 losses, 16 playoff appearances, and 2 Super Bowls. The Browns, since 1999, that was when they returned to the NFL, 141 wins, 279 losses, 3 playoff appearances, 0 Super Bowls. Look, I mean, this whole thing about the 30th season, and I don't want to spend the whole segment talking about necessarily this per se, but we heard a Ravens spokesperson here. There was a text that was sent out, or a statement that was sent out from a Ravens spokesperson about how this planning all came together for the 30th celebration here. And they said, quote, "Planning for our 30th season began last year with the home opener is the official kickoff of our anniversary celebration. The plans to celebrate the 30th season were publicly released in March prior to the announcement of the league schedule and before we knew who our home opponent would be, or who our home opening opponent would be, excuse me." Look, the Ravens are aware of the optics, all right? Like, the Ravens are aware of the optics. It'd be, and I guess the question I pose is like, yeah, you know what? If the Colts announced that their home opener would be the celebration of their 30th season and that was the Ravens in their home opener, yeah, the optics of that, like, yeah, you get it. You understand what those optics are. But for the Ravens and Browns here, this planning takes a lot of time. It's not like we saw the schedule be released and the next day the Ravens said, okay, now we're going to celebrate our 30th season in week 2. Like, to me, it's honestly kind of a non-story. Like, I understand the optics of it. I truly do. I get it. But to me, and even a couple of the Browns players, I mean, Joe kind of talked about it. We've heard a lot of other guys talk about it. And I think that even the Browns just want to kind of focus on football here. And I guess trash talking Derrick Henry and the Ravens secondary. But that point aside, I just don't really see the point of dragging this out here, where clearly the plans were being made. And yeah, it just kind of happened that way. And you can understand what it looks like. You can understand the history that happened. And also understand that, like, are they going to shift everything? Also, it just makes sense to me to celebrate it at the first home opener. Like, it does, regardless of the opponent. It's 30 years of being in Baltimore, 30th season of the Ravens. Yeah, you're going to celebrate at the first home game. It'd be weird to have it like in a random mid-October home game. Like, I feel like this is what it should be. Now, Chris Canny, I think he like upped the ante like 50 times, considering what everybody else has kind of said about it. Chris Canny was like, no, you got to show them, like, do it. Where again, I think the Ravens was kind of like, we just want to celebrate our home opener. But it's something I haven't really talked about throughout the week. And obviously for bonus episodes, we pick up some of the headlines I wasn't able to get to as much, as we have so much going on throughout the week. When it permits, we do bonus episodes. So I just wanted to give my 2 cents on it, where I'm just like, yeah, you can, if you're a Cleveland fan, you can be upset at the optics of it, but this was always happening. This was always going to be a thing. And it just so happened the Browns were the team that was coming to town in week number 1. And yeah, Chris Canny, I guess, is now an enemy in Cleveland based off of what he had to say there. So, look, I mean, I think we should just be focusing on the game, right? Like, they're going to have a cool celebration. They're going to get the legends. Like, they're going to do the whole thing. And then it's game time. Like, it is. And if that gives the Browns extra motivation, so be it. Like, okay, if you want to use it as motivation, you can. They're clearly hyping themselves up this week. But I don't think it's that big of a story. I truly don't. That's my take on it here. Just focus on the game, right? That's my opinion of it. So that's what we're going to do. In the final part of the show, we're going to be diving into Ravens and Browns talk, previewing a little bit before we have our game day episode, obviously, tomorrow. We're going to preview a little bit about what each team has to do to win and some stats behind each team. So stay tuned. A lot coming up on the show. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward is honestly Lamar Jackson, right? He played great in that game against Buffalo. Yeah, the Ravens lost that game. But in my opinion, what defined the game, particularly the post game, was how Lamar kept everything focused on the future. It was a tough game, really devastating loss, but his mindset, I think, was a really positive thing, because each game is one game. You have to separate everything. You can't carry negative momentum. And I think Lamar Jackson truly did his best to move forward right after the game. I think that's the mindset that the fans should have, that the team should have, and that Baltimore should have. So I credit Lamar Jackson for that. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. Just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Continuing on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still talking Ravens football with you on the Saturday bonus edition of the show. Again, 5 days a week plus more here on Locked On Ravens. Main show is Monday through Friday at 6 a.m. Eastern time, but we have so much other content for you, like bonus episodes, watch alongs, instant reaction shows, Locked On Ravens squad show. We have it all for you here. And also be sure that you follow along on social media. I'm at CashRecord34, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, the whole 9 yards. So appreciate everybody. This is, look, it's been a journey here for me on Locked On Ravens. It's been incredible, and I can't wait to hopefully cover the Ravens winning a Super Bowl this year. But, of course, you got a long way to go for that and got to bounce back from that week 1 loss. Now, let's talk a little bit about the Ravens and Browns matchup. Again, we're going to have a whole game day episode tomorrow to get everybody pumped up, ready for the game. So be sure you check that out in the morning on Sunday. Always have those game day episodes. But little mini preview here. Obviously, both teams, Ravens and Browns, are 0-1. In the AFC North. Browns lost to the Bengals. Ravens obviously to the Bills. Ravens have a couple of advantages that I like here. You know, I think for me, we can start off with, well, look, on paper, the Ravens are the better roster, right? I think that's where you start. But when you look at this Browns offense, I just don't think there's a very high ceiling for it, right? I think with the Ravens offense and the Browns offense, you know, it's very different in terms of the ceiling. Like, the Ravens, I think, have a high floor and high ceiling, right? Even when they don't play their best, they're still going to put up a decent amount of points. The Browns offense has low floor, low ceiling, where there are games where they're not going to be able to move the ball. And even when they do, are they going to be able to put up 40 points in a game like the Ravens did? I don't think so. I just don't think the Browns have enough firepower here. And again, that doesn't mean that the Ravens are going to automatically win the game, because obviously it comes down to a lot of other factors than that. And, you know, if the Ravens play to their floor and the Browns play to their ceiling, maybe that is a way the Browns can win the game. And that's kind of what I say when the Ravens are playing a team that they're clearly better than. One of the ways that the opposing team can win is just slop the game up. Make it just a slop fest. That is how the Ravens have lost in the past, the teams that they obviously should beat. Now, just some background on the Browns. Obviously, we know Joe Flacco coming to town for the first time since he was traded after that 2018 season. So, look, it's been a while for Joe since he's been back in Baltimore, back in M&T Bank Stadium, and playing as a starting quarterback. Now, the injury report for both teams is interesting. So Michael Hall, the Browns defensive tackle, he is out in this game. Other than that, Quinshawn Judkins, the Browns rookie running back, he was full on Thursday and Friday. He is questionable. And then Jack Conklin with an eye and an elbow injury was limited all 3 days. He is going to be questionable for this game as well. But other than that, the Browns are healthy. For the Ravens, Isaiah Likely and Patrick Ricard will not play in this game, but Likely was limited on Friday, which bodes well for his week 3 availability. And by the way, I want to say this. If you've been listening to me on Locked On Ravens here since Likely got hurt, my timeline the whole way was week 3. The whole way was week 3. So if that happens, that's why you tune in, right? That's why you tune in, because sometimes I know stuff. Sometimes I know a little bit. And look, I'm not a doctor. That was just kind of my assumption, but hey, still, if it's week 3, hopefully the Ravens get him back then, but they're not going to have him for this game against the Browns. Jair Alexander was limited on Wednesday, but was full on Thursday and Friday. He's good to go. Rashad Bateman, he didn't practice on Friday due to a personal reason, but he does not have an injury designation. And Nnamdi Madubuike was DNP limited full for his 3 days, and he is good to go as well. So not a lot of injuries impacting this game, although I think that Ricard and Likely's injuries will probably be the two that are the biggest for, like, you know, Michael Hall is a fine player, I guess, but, you know, Likely and Ricard play a little bit more important roles, I would say, on the Ravens offense. But hey, you know what? I want to say that I was very impressed by Zaire Mitchell-Pedden as well as Charlie Kohler in the game in week 1. So we know that Zaire is going to fill in for Ricard and Kohler is going to fill in for Likely in ways. It's got to hope that the Ravens can, again, like the offense scored 40 points, right? The offense was not the issue, but you know, just being able to later in the game, right? That's going to be the thing. Later in the game, are they going to be able to continue to put their foot up on the gas if they need to? I mean, that's the question, right? That's what everybody's asking. So play calling wise, Todd Monken, Zach Orr, John Harbaugh. Again, I've said this on the show all week. John Harbaugh's the head coach. All right. We can blame Todd Monken. We can blame Zach Orr for some of the play calling. I get it. But John Harbaugh is the head coach. He has his footprints and fingerprints all over this team. So he has input on how things are kind of done and how the games go and stuff. So that to me is something that's big. The Browns, in terms of their stats through week 1, and again, it's only week 1, it's one game, but the Browns defense, really good, really good. They're the best run defense in the league right now at 2 yards a carry given up, and they are the second best pass defense in the league, 3.7 net yards per attempt. And they played a Bengals offense that, again, is supposed to be high flying, right? Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, like Chase Brown, they're supposed to be good. They held them to 7 second half yards. 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 second half yards. So look, you have Myles Garrett, you have to stop him. Denzel Ward, Grant Delpit, who hopefully Derrick Henry will be stiff arming a couple times, but we will see. By the way, Myles Garrett, I don't think he condoned Grant Delpit's comments about Derrick Henry being hard to tackle. He said you got to go out there and prove it. So, and then, look, Myles Garrett, he knows what's up. And Myles Garrett's a heck of a player, one of the best defensive players we've ever seen, and arguably the best defensive player in the game today. So got to be able to stop him. But again, like offensively, I get that the Ravens secondary struggled in week 1, and Jerry Jeudy's made it clear he does not think there are any challenges with Baltimore secondary, which I still think is absurd despite the loss that the Ravens had in week 1. But again, like it's Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman as your top 2 wide receivers. You have David Njoku and Harold Fannin. I mean, look, maybe it's a thing where it's more on the safeties and linebackers in this game. You know, maybe it's like stopping Jeudy and Tillman is okay and easy, but maybe it's Njoku and Fannin you have to worry about. And Kadri Ismail, actually, former Ravens receiver, we have him on all the time. He talked about Roquan Smith a little bit and kind of what's happened to Roquan. So I want to play that clip from the show that we had with Q a couple days ago, and then we'll talk about it a little more. The Ravens, it's in the big spots, in the big moments, they get ahead. And then sometimes they're a different team. They go away from their identity, and that's been a huge issue.
Is there something to be said to talk to, Zach Orr, Marlon Humphrey, Roquan Smith? What's up with Roquan anyway? Like, bro, yeah.
Been rough.
Like, there were a couple plays there where I'm like, good God, the guard must be like, yes, I get to block Agent Zero.
Well, I'm even saying on the James Cook play where James Cook took it, I don't know if he was trying to like punch the ball out or like I don't know what he was trying to do.
And that's just not, he is like he was one of the more short tackling linebackers where there are times he's gotten blown off the ball or he's taken on a block and like taking a wrong angle. And, that guy that was, we saw come out here and play versus New Orleans, like, where's that guy?
And look, by no means is Roquan Smith a bad player, but he just isn't the player right now, at least consistently, that we saw during his first season plus in Baltimore. And, that's something that it's disappointing. It's unfortunate, but we're going to have to kind of see how the rest of this year unfolds. Because again, like we saw second half of the season last year, Roquan Smith was really, really good. But, we saw those plays against Buffalo where you're just like, man, what's going on here? So against the tight end duo like Njoku and Fannin, going to be really important for him. And obviously, you look at kind of how the Ravens and Browns match up in general. I mean, it's only 1 week, so it's kind of hard to put too much stock into like red zone, third down and all that. But the Browns are the third best third down offense in the league right now. I mean, for the Ravens, they're, right now number 4. So I guess it's a battle of 2 top 5 third down conversion offenses. But, Ravens right now are 22nd in red zone percentage. The Browns were 10th. But again, it's like the Browns converted on 66.7, the Ravens on 33.3. So it's like 2 for 3 versus 1 for 3. It's not as deep as it would be if we've been through like a month of the season. So Ravens on paper should win this game. But will they do that? That, of course, is the big question. That's all I have for you here today, though, on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. On the way out, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button in video form and audio form, as we have the same show for you, both video and audio here. So we'll be back here tomorrow. Get you ready for game day with a game day edition of the show. So be sure to stay tuned for that, and I will see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.